Alright, so thank you for tuning in to another episode of A Business Minute. I'm your boy Sirr, and today I got another special guest of Powerlines Poetry. Alright, Mobile's own Dalonta Jones, aka Mr.Imjustbeinhonest. How's it going, bro?
It's going alright, my brother. How are you?
Can't complain, bro. Another day, another blessing, the way I say it. So, before we get started, if you could, just tell everybody what it is that you do.
Well, I am a spoken word artist. Some would call me a poet. You know, they kind of go hand in hand. What I do is I kind of call it realism poetry because I take personal encounters of mine and some of the things that I've seen and come across in life and try to translate it in a way that people can understand it and it's easy to digest, so to speak.
Okay.
So a lot of my poetry comes from my own personal experiences in life.
Okay. All right. And how long have you been doing poetry?
If I had to count back, I would say now about 17 years.
Whoa.
I was 12 when I wrote my first piece. So I do have the math off a little bit, but I'm 34 now. So it's been a long time.
We can round. We can round. I understand. I just turned 32 last week.
Yeah.
So I completely understand. My math has never been great.
Yeah.
So I like to round myself, so don't feel bad. All right. So if I may ask, like, what inspired you to start doing poetry?
Well, inspiration. Well, where I come from, there are a lot of lessons to be learned from where I'm from.
Right.
To put it lightly. And I just noticed in my neighborhood there were no role models. There was nobody that could stand up and be held accountable for. So, you know, when I was coming up, I always said I wanted to do something that made a difference. And give the people in my community something, or someone rather, to look at and say, you know, if he made it and he's successful, I can make it too. So that was my whole mission. All
right. So doing this for 17 years plus, were there any obstacles that you came across that kind of defined a little bit more of why you do this and who you are?
Yes. It was a lot of stuff, man. It was a lot of me dealing with my own personal issues. Coming from a broken home, you know, I didn't meet my father until I was 10 years old.
Wow.
And he was incarcerated at the time. So, you know, I was going through that cycle of him being in and out of prison, being put in situations, coming from a single parent household that weren't always the safest. It was a lot that cultivated me. That was part of it. I lost my grandmother at a young age, and I always wanted to do something that I felt like she would be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what inspired me to pursue poetry, I always date back to her taking her last breath holding my hand.
Oh, man.
And when I'm on stage, it's like I go back to that place, and it's like, Grandma, I hope you're proud of me. Because, you know, when I was coming up, I had a lot of adversity. It was a lot going on around me that you wouldn't have thought that I would have made it to this point. You know, a lot of people said that I wasn't going to live to see past 19. But here I am sitting before you at 34, and I've grown a lot. So I'm thankful. Poetry actually saved my life, because when I first came in the game, I was rapping. And I didn't know that that's what I was doing, because I always had this constant beat in my head. So when I would get on stage, I would kind of just go with the beat. And it took for a few people to come back to other people in my troupe and say, hey, sit him down and, you know, show him the difference. So that's kind of what you see now, is me being coached and taught more about the poetry side of the game.
Okay. All right. I like that. And I was going to ask, like, is that something that you're still sharpening to this day? Like, you know,
I still write a lot. I tell my troop members all the time, y'all kind of gotta like pay me no attention because everything inspires me at this point. But if there was something that I could sharpen up, it would be my image. And I say my image because I feel like I could have been a lot farther in poetry had I would have been less defensive. It's kind of like the only child syndrome. You know, I didn't have any brothers and sisters that were here coming up. It was always just me. And, you know, me being a smaller guy, I always had to fight a lot. So coming into this game, and there's so much love and there's so much, you know, there's so much embrace, that was something that I had to get used to because I didn't come from that type of background or that history. So it would be basically making myself more accessible to people so that when I'm speaking to them, they can actually feel like they were there instead of being nervous when they see me coming.
That is a difference. That does come with age. Because I feel like when you're younger, we can be a little bit more brash and short-tempered.
Right.
But as you grow and encompass more people that would like to see genuinely you grow and be a better you can kind of absorb that energy and that fuse becomes longer. So I agree with you on that. I agree with you. So with doing poetry, you also have a personal life. And you have to maintain that balance. So how do you maintain that balance between work and your personal life?
It's hard. It's hard because what a lot of people don't understand is even when you're out and you're promoting and you're performing, it's fun, but you're still working at the same time because you're representing a brand. So you have to be careful of the things that you do and the things that you say because, you know, you're in the public eye. The city is on you. The way that I balance is I do a lot of praying. Like in the mornings, I get up and that's the first thing I do is I pray. It's almost like a inward self-check within myself that before I leave this place and go forth, let me make sure I got it right with him first. So that's mainly what I do. I pray a lot.
No, that's fine. I usually ask people, you know, who I consider artists. I consider you an artist as well. What are their daily mantras? Like, how do you start your day before, you know, going out? And usually prayer is usually the go-to answer. And I was a little confused by it at first.
Right.
But that is a great way to kind of set the standard for the day. You know, like, first you're giving thanks to the person who gave you the ability to wake up today because it wasn't granted. And then you can now take on the day knowing that you've shown your respect to the creator who've given you this opportunity. So I think that's dope. I do. So now, harken back to how long you've been doing this and being at the age of 34, you're seeing, you know, more of the world in terms of your craft. Were there any memorable moments that you would choose that was like the defining moment of like, this is why I love poetry. This is why I do this?
I have so many. Wow. If I had to pick one though, it would be before I even became a part of the brand. We were at a rooftop poetry show that we did, and we were still kind of, you know, performing, doing the open mic, but, you know, people don't notice about me, but I was kind of shy. So for a long time, I would never like come out to the front. I would always come in, hey, speak to everybody, kind of do my thing and leave so that I wouldn't get noticed. And immediately after that performance, in between that performance, I remember Roz coming to me and Raina, and she had tickets to, I think it was the Color of Spring Ball. And we didn't know that we were going. And me and her both cried in the elevator, like right there on the outside of the elevator. And then, you know, I'm trying to hide it and cover my face and stuff. And, you know, Roz comes in and she sees us like this and she's like, what's wrong? And then here comes everybody else. So it just did something for my spirit and for my heart to she let me know that, you know, I really care. You know what I'm saying? That was the first instance I stopped looking at her as just my poetry president, and I feel like then she became my friend. So that's one of my most memorable moments out of this. Okay.
And I appreciate you being open about that, because with being a guy, you know, we have to put up that front up to a certain age,
right?
That, you know, no tears, no nothing, no emotion, strong.
Right.
But as you grow, you learn that the stronger ones are the ones who are able to take that time to decompress, show that vulnerability, and move on and continue to grow. So I give you kudos on that. And my next question is kind of the inverse of that most memorable moment question, because usually people think of that as a high point. I want to ask about the low point, because, you know, through every mountain there is a valley at some point.
True.
So at any point did you feel that you wouldn't be successful? And if so, who or what changed your mind?
Yes, there was a point where I felt like I wasn't going to be successful. And that was around the time that I was converting from being just an open mic artist to now representing a brand. Because there were things that I was being told, but at that time I didn't understand what they meant, because all of this was kind of new to me. I had been writing for a while and, you know, coming to shows, watching, listening to the performers, but never me just thrusting myself face forward into it. It was around that time that I kind of questioned whether or not I was going to, I guess you could say, amount up to the rest of the people in the troupe. And it took for, I love Cara. Shout out to Butter So Fly. It took for her to come to me and tell me, you're different for a reason. I was so focused on trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be that I didn't take the time out to really focus on what I brought to the table. And it was just a different, unique style. A lot of them have coined me as Mr. Misunderstood, because I have a way of saying something or relaying a message, and it may hit one person one way, but somebody else totally different. So if I had to pick a defining moment, it would have been my crossover during that time, because I really wanted to quit. Like, nobody knew what was going on behind the scenes. But, you know, it was kind of, to me, in my mind, it was almost like I was pledging a fraternity. And, like, man, we went through it. But in the end, it was all worth it. Like, I really consider these individuals, all 7 of them, to be my family members now. So, coming from a place of not really having a tight-knit family, and now everybody is embracing me and showing me how to love, I think it's dope. And I want to see how far it goes.
You know, I'm starting to learn, like, the person I call my dad, my best friend's dad, actually. He told me something that stuck with me. He said, God makes no mistakes. In terms of the people you meet, in terms of the decisions you make, there's always a lesson or an underlying reason for it. And I think when you meet people, it may be uncomfortable at first due to it being change, but if you're uncomfortable, that's good, because that means you're growing. So as long as you grow and you're around people that are doing stuff that's positive, that are genuinely interested in you and making you a better person at what you're doing, you can't beat that. So that's the best kind of crowd to be around. That's the ideal family, whether it be blood related or not biological. Family is just a group of people who are just supporting you and wanting you to do the best job you can. So that's a blessing. That is not a lot of people can do that.
I didn't always look at it like that, though. I'm gonna be honest. In the beginning, I felt like, why are they always on my neck? And I just could not understand it. But, you know, Eternity came to me one day and he was like, man, if I don't say anything to you, then you should be worried. He was like, as long as I'm on your neck and I'm pushing you and I want to see you succeed, you good. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of made me look at him differently too. Because in the beginning, I always thought Eternity was the meanest dude walking the face of the earth. I knew he was like a joker and he was a goofball, but I always thought he was just real mean. Until I got a chance to get to know him.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that, man, he's been through a lot too.
Yes, he has.
So it just, it makes me appreciate my troop members more because I know a little bit about their lives and their history. And it just kind of makes me feel like, wow, you know, I'm not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's awesome, man. Like, I wouldn't trade this feeling for nothing in the world. Poetry is therapeutic, and people say that for a reason.
Preach.
It is. It's therapeutic, and I love it.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. That's why I'm making it a point to interview all of you if possible. The first person I interviewed was actually Rosalind.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that was an over-the-phone interview. I didn't get to sit down in person, but I did get to meet her later.
Right.
And, man, the conversation we had just from an initial meeting was one of the best conversations I ever had. She's so open.
Right.
And she told me about her relationship with her grandmother, her relationship with her father, just how that affects her. And I have this snippet of her conversation on a previous episode of the podcast I did where I was keep listening to it because she was talking about not giving up. Right. And it was so inspirational. And it wasn't a piece or anything. She was just speaking life. Right. And I listened to it from time to time just to keep me going and see that on that aspect. And I'm not even in the troop. I can understand because that is a leadership quality that you definitely want. You know, you want somebody that can speak life into you, you know, even if it's just one-on-one conversation. So, yeah, that's awesome. And I love how all of y'all are different. All of y'all. That's why I try to support everything I can go to that y'all at. Like, the last time I seen you was at the Lupus event. You and Raina was there doing pieces. Yeah. And I love seeing the reaction y'all get when y'all spit something and it catches somebody, like, right after you say it. Right. Like, they're like, I got it. Hearing them pops in the air and the snaps. Yeah. I feel y'all on that.
That's amazing, too, because in the beginning, I was really doing it to get some freedom for myself. Mm. In the beginning, I really wasn't thinking about how my words would affect someone else. Mm-hmm. And now that, you know, I'm becoming more active and I'm traveling and I'm doing this thing more, and I'm starting to sit back and notice the responses now. Like, after the Lupus event, I had a lady to walk up to me and she literally talked to me for 20 minutes about her son who committed suicide. No. And I think I did a poem called Change that day, where I talk about where I come from and the changes that I'm trying to make. And she was like, it's amazing to me that you're standing here and you're giving part of your life story. I wish my son would have had that same courage. And she didn't know it, but it was like, that's why I do this. Mm-hmm. You know, not to really get that type of reaction, but I want my words to be more than just words. You know, when I speak, I want it to be life to you. I want you to feel like I was there, you know? Right. So, that's part of what poetry is doing for me, is basically taking this imagination that I have and I'm scripting it, basically. Right. It's kind of how I look at it.
Real talk.
But man, it's absolutely dope. Like, man, I can't say enough about it.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that because I talked to Eternity, and it was my first time sitting down talking to him. I thought the same exact thing about him. I thought he was mean because he has a resting mean face. Yeah. Like, he looks serious 24/7, but if you talk to him, he'll light up like Kara does. Yeah. And yeah, we sat down, did the interview, and even after the interview, we continued the conversation for like a whole nother hour. Yeah. And just like Roz, just open, talking about everything. Just like Kara, open, will tell you everything, you know. Took this horrible situation and turned it into something positive and shared it with people. Just like Eternity, just like Ray, just like you, just like Roz. I can't do anything but respect it. Because you're taking that negative energy and experience and you're relating to people and giving that voice to the voiceless who may not be here or may be too afraid to speak up. So
Right.
kudos to y'all.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
no
Kudos to you too for taking time out of your day to interview us. And
Yeah, man.
this is awesome. And we
Right,
are
man.
definitely grateful and thankful.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine, brother. And my next question is what I call the long-term question.
Okay.
This is because I'm one of those people that like to think of the next move and the next move after that move and the next move after that move and that move. So, where would you like to see yourself, even as a part of Powerlines, in the next 1 year,
Mhm.
in the next 3 years, and then in the next 10 years?
Wow. That's an interesting question. Okay, the next year. Hopefully within the next year, because we have so much material at this point.
Mhm.
Hopefully we'll all be either putting projects together or collaboratively working on a group album.
I think that'd be hot.
I would like to see that happen within the next year. Within the next 3, I'm not gonna say. Well, yes, I am gonna say I'd like to be on an entrepreneur level to where now I'm really traveling with this. Now people are really starting to respect this, not only as something that we do, but more so as this is our craft. So I would like to see myself a little more involved on the traveling side, as well as the community activist side. I would like to be able to go to more workshops where I'm speaking to children and doing poems of message. Things like the Lupus event and the museums, those type of events. Within the next 10 years.
Yeah, I understand.
10, wow. It seems like a long time, but it's really not that long. Hopefully, I will be at a level in this business where Powerline starts to work for me.
Okay.
What I mean when I say that is I won't have to say it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
People will just know. You know what I'm saying? Like, at this point, without this, I look like a regular person. But when they see that, it's like, I don't know, it's like the light bulb goes off and, oh, he's Powerlines. But, you know, without it, I'm just Dalonta. So, yeah, within the next 10, I would like for it to be like, I would like for people to know, okay, yeah, he's Powerlines Poetry. You know, I want to do more than just speak and spit. You know, I want the words to penetrate. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. I want to be more than just an artist. You know, I want to give back in every way that I possibly can, because in giving back, it helps me to deal with my own issues and not really focus on them, but find positive, creative ways to get through them.
Okay.
That's something that I always taught myself, is the more that you help someone else, it takes you out of a depressional place or a place of anxiety, and it puts you in a more better state of mind.
Right.
So, you know, I would love to be traveling and doing more of those type of events in 10 years, you know, being kind of like a statue of the brand, like Cara and Eternity and Roz are. They've been doing this a long time too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so humble. That's something that I would love to remain, whether it's 1, 3, or 10 years from now. I want to always remember to stay humble, because without it, I don't think I would have gotten to this point. If I had came in the game arrogant and, you know, like I knew everything, I think I would have been shunned instead of the message really getting across. So that's, you know, an inward thing that I deal with. No matter how popular, quote unquote, you may get with this, remember where you came from and where you started.
Ooh, humble beginnings, man. Humble beginnings. All right. So, Dante, my last question is my favorite question.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say this is because this is the question I dedicate to the people who are listening.
Right.
This is the question for the person who wants to start out with an idea or a passion of their own and share it with the world,
Mm-hmm.
but they're scared. Because that first step is always the scariest.
Mm-hmm.
Even I'm sure you can relate.
Right.
Reciting your first piece, I'm pretty sure you went through it a million times before you did it. So, much less sharing an idea of yours with the world to see how they react. What words of encouragement would you have for that person who's just standing on the edge, thinking about taking that chance on themselves, but are too scared to move? How would you inspire them?
Well, for one, I would tell them to not ever quit. If you feel like you are talented, skilled in an area, and you have a message that is from your heart that you want to get out, no matter what anyone says, do what your heart tells you to do. Fear will always be the first thing that will set in, but the advice that I would give to anyone starting out that has a passion for whether it be poetry, whether it be artistry, whatever it is that they're trying to pursue, do it. Find something within you that would push you to do it. If it's a relative, if it's a loved one, if it's a neighborhood that you want to be uplifted, find something positive in that fear and utilize it. Because you'll never make that first step until you make that first step.
Mm.
So that would be the two things I would say. Step out on faith and don't quit. No matter how bad it looks, no matter how many people tell you no, pursue it. Because it'll be worth it in the end.
Love it. Love it. Dalonta, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, whether it be about poetry, whether it be about Powerlines, or they might just want to have a one-on-one conversation with you, because you're very approachable, obviously. So how could they get in contact with you?
Well, you can contact me through Facebook, Dalonta Jones. Also on IG, Mr.Imjustbeinhonest. Also, www.powerlinespoetry.com. You can go there for biographies, all of our upcoming shows that are to come. You can go to that web address to check those out and follow us and see what we have going on.
All right. Well, bro, I appreciate you coming through.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you taking time out your day to come through here, man.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you found a place easily. And that's it, man. Appreciate
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, and if you're listening, I'll include the links in the description of this video. God bless, bro.
Okay.
That's it, man.
That was really dope.
I told you.
That was really
It's
dope.
easier than you think. Usually people, not you, because you're used to speaking out in public, but usually people get nervous.
Yeah.
Or get really aware of what they're saying, but
Yeah.
you did great, brother. You did great. Shoot.
Believe it or not, I was kind of prepped for it.
Really?
Yeah. I went and I talked to Eternity because I was nervous at first. And I was like, bro, you've done this, but I'm nervous about it. And he kind of eased me with, he does this all the time. Mm-hmm. When I get over nervous about something, he just looks at me and he says, bro, just talk to him like you talk to me.
That's literally it.
Yeah. So that's what I did.
That's literally it, brother. That's literally it, man.